our handbook was something that years ago I Googled handbook, I downloaded it in Word, and fast forward 2-3 years, I sent it to our lawyer, and she was like, you can't use this. There's stuff in here that just doesn't make sense. So we got rid of it, started from scratch, and drafted one with, all the boilerplate stuff, all the Massachusetts specific stuff, our vacation policies, our policies for vehicles, for social media, for cell phones. Good morning or afternoon, whatever it is for you. It is morning for me. It's Friday. And yeah, I just got in the office today, and yesterday I was on another podcast, and we were talking specifically about employees and hiring and retaining talent. And I gotta say, when I got asked to talk about that, my immediate thought was, man, it's been something that we've struggled with recently. And am I the right person to talk about this? And I realized that I'm focusing on the negative parts of hiring and retaining talent, meaning like the people that leave or the people that don't work out or the people that we let go. When in reality, that is part of the whole process, hiring and retaining talent. We're interviewing multiple people a week at this point. And let me explain why. We need to fulfill spots that are empty, but we're also looking to grow. We have a tremendous amount of opportunity in front of us, and we're not stopping that bus. We want to continue to build great relationships with great partners and have the opportunity to do some really cool projects. So we're forward thinking in terms of who we need to have on our team. But when the question when the question was phrased around or focused around retaining talent, I started really thinking about the things that we've implemented over the last couple of years that have been really instrumental and really important in retaining talent and keeping employees up to speed. And it all really comes back to one thing, and that's the expectation of that person. As simple as a job description, it sounds silly. And I remember years ago, I had a conversation with my team. I was like, hey, we don't need job descriptions. We're here to get stuff done. Like, everyone's going to work together and we're just going to get it done. And I want to say in the moment, everyone's like, yeah, that sounds great. But the reality was it wasn't great. Like, no one really knew where their responsibilities started and stopped, right? And it's also, I think it's Google that does this whole freedom vacation policy. And I implemented that maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And it was like, hey, freedom vacation policy, you take as much time as you want, whenever you want, just as long as you give us an appropriate amount of heads up. And we determined that for every day that you want to take off, you would need to give us 1 week's notice. So you want to take off a day, a week's notice. You want to take off 5 days, 5 weeks' notice, and so on and so forth. And, I ended up reading an article that same year talking about how the freedom vacation policy actually prevented people from taking time off. People didn't feel comfortable. They didn't know what the expectation was. It's like, yeah, I know I can take whenever I want off, but what's going to be the danger zone? Like, if I take 6 months off, is my job in danger? It probably should be, right? If you can take 6 months off, like, so we had a similar conversation internally, and people weren't taking time off. They were like, I just don't know how much time I'm supposed to take off or when I'm supposed to take it off. I'd rather you just tell me, hey, you have 40 hours a year to take off, and that's that. And so people like, generally speaking, people like to have some sort of, guardrails as to like, hey, this is the expectation of this. And that goes back to job descriptions. And, for a long time, I remember I had a assistant project manager years ago, and, her and I would talk a lot about the job description. And it was something that, we kept loosely putting together, and it was never really clear. And it was never really thorough enough, but also, open enough to kind of be, um, not so tight wound, meaning like, hey, this is your job description. You don't go and you don't do anything outside of this. And it was probably about a year ago where I sat down and finally, it's actually less than a year ago at this point, and I call it the NS Builders career document. And the document is essentially every single role that we have currently, starting with an apprentice all the way up to a director of operations, and it outlines each of those roles specifically, and the pay scale and what is required for that person to be promoted. And it took days to put this together. Um, I sat down and really thought each of those roles out, and making sure that I understood, like, hey, these are the things that we're judging you on. Here's like this is what the pay scale looks like when you're a beginner at this role to um, advanced. I forget what the word I'm using. I need to drink my coffee is what I need to do. Um, you know, intermediate and then advanced, right? And outlines all of that pay scale and outlines exactly what needs to be done in terms of like, hey, this is how you're promoted. And it took a while to put together, but we shared it with the team, and the team was like, great, like, that it was fine. Like, they already are in their role. They probably took a quick peek at it. But when it came to hiring, when we were talking to people that were hiring and we were sharing like the role that we were hiring for, hey, here's the role that we're hiring you for. When they read through that, just about every single person came back and said, man, this is really well thought out. And I'm not patting myself on the back by any means, but my point is like, it was received really well by a potential applicant. They understood what we were hiring for. They understood the role that we were expecting them to fulfill, the responsibilities, the tasks that they would likely be doing, the KPIs in which we would be measuring their success at, and also, hey, here's a pay scale. And if you want to think about what your career might look like in 5 years, here's how you get promoted. Here's what the next role could be. As a carpenter, it's like, do you want to be a lead carpenter, a master carpenter? Do you want to be an advanced master carpenter, or do you want to take the superintendent role and go in superintendent? And as a superintendent, do you want to, excel in site super, or do you want to pivot and go to project management? And because all those roles are different. And in doing that, and getting that feedback, it just kind of reinforces the whole, setting the expectation and being very clear with the expectation with people. And and it's really a balance of formality, where I think that, and this is where I struggle, because I am one of those people that tend to kind of swing the pendulum, where it's like, hey, I see something working, let's put all our effort into this. And when I see like something like that, with formality that's working, I take that and I'm like, how do I capitalize on that? How do I take that for potential new hires and then implement that for, people that work for us today? And I sat down and I basically put together these more formal reviews, or plans to improve. And some of that didn't go over well. Just to be totally transparent here, it's called a PIP plan, performance improvement plan, and it was the first time I've ever heard of them. Another builder told me about him. He's like, hey, this is what we use when we feel as though someone needs to improve their performance. Here's the format. I took that, I revised it. I was like, all right. I was like, these guys are doing a good job, but in order for us to continue to grow into the market that we want, I need them to be more actionable against being great. And here are the things that I think we can work together to be great. And I'll be honest, like, it didn't go over well, and that was hard. I was like, this isn't intended to be this, like, punch to the gut. It's intended to be, hey, here's how we formally work together. Because otherwise, it's we sit down, in a performance review, or or we're chatting on site once a week, and none of that. There's so much other stuff going on that oftentimes the 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 improvement um, comments don't always get picked up, or they don't get written down, or they don't get tracked. And and I think that, I think we can all know that whatever gets tracked and measured improves, because you're watching it. It's like a bank account. If you're not looking at your bank account, you don't know whether it's up or down. If you're looking at your bank account every single day and you see it going down, like, you're probably going to be more actionable against preventing that. You're gonna be like, I can't keep watching my my money go out the account. I gotta put more money in and watch it start going up. And it's the same thing. And I look at it for myself as well, where it's like there's things that I want to improve on, and so I'm forcing myself to track the progress. And when I track the progress, like, I'm watching it improve. If I can't see it improve, I don't know if my progress is actually doing anything. um and all of this to say, it, it it's a difficult, uh I think it's difficult in general. I think this industry is very difficult when it comes to labor and culture and people. Boston is a very competitive market. So there's a lot of fantastic builders around here that people will bounce around, and that can be super frustrating. And it's people are like, well, how do you retain talent and how do you prevent them from leaving? It's there's no real simple answer. It's difficult. Everyone has a different goal, and I think that's the one of the things I've realized too is, you know truthfully, my goal continues to change. When I started my business 10 years ago, I thought I was going to be a carpentry company. I thought it was going to be me and a couple guys being carpenters every single day. And I'm not doing any carpentry anymore. And I'm wearing sneakers and I'm sitting in an office with a microphone in front of me and two computer screens. And I'm about to spend the entire day here working behind the computer. That wasn't what I thought I would be doing 10 years ago. And every year things change, and my goal changes. And I changes slightly. It's not like I go from, hey, I want to build 100 homes a year, to I want to build one home a year. It's more about the product and the end result. But it's always been about quality and attention to detail. And I think that is a really can be really straining on people. And for me specifically, like, I've failed at being a good leader in that sense, where I've talked about this on the podcast, where I've come on the job site and seen something and been like, I don't like that, let's rip it out and do it again. And my initial reaction is like, well, what's it matter? They're everyone gets paid for this. Like, I'm the one taking the financial hit. But what I was doing is I was hurting the morale on the job. And I actually went to an event a couple years ago, and I was talking about this, actually with Jocko. It was Jocko's event, and it was about leadership. And I was explaining this situation. I was like, this is where I struggle. Like, this is what I struggle with, is that, how do I get my team to want to be a little bit better? And, he said something, I'm going to paraphrase, but he was talking about the fact that, when I'm on the job site and I see something, the reality of it is it's probably good. It's probably great. It's probably an A plus, but I'm looking at it as, yeah, it's an A plus, but it's a 97%. And I really want it to be 100 or closer to 100. And I'm ripping something out and making it better. And maybe it's 98, 99, maybe it's 100% at that point. But I'm doing it at the risk of a relationship, and that relationship being myself and that employee. And and I've had them pull me aside. I was like, Nick, we can't keep doing this. You're coming on site, and it's basically like, when you get there, it's this anxiety of, hey, he's going to make us rip something out. And that was years ago. And I would say that I think I'm confident to say that I'm much better at it now, where I am leaning on my team and encouraging them to do the right thing, and I'm really only stepping in when it's really wrong. And encouraging other people in my team to see when things could be better. and asking the hard questions where, if something isn't that great, asking them, hey, what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on how that came out? And, I think if you can get that person to communicate to you that, hey, yeah, I think we should rip it out. Well, now it's their idea and it's not yours coming in, micromanaging and undermining what they've done. And again, it's, it really comes back to the expectation. It really comes back to setting that expectation up front. What is the common goal? And in terms of people and retaining people, it's, do you share that common goal? Do you want does everyone on your team understand what the business is trying to accomplish, and are they aligned with it? Because when there is misalignment, when there's misalignment, the opportunity will eventually present itself to that person to leave. And if you understand that misalignment sooner, then you have the opportunity to kind of correct that or prevent that or make that move sooner, so you're not investing in someone that is eventually going to leave because of that misalignment. I think that's really important. Um, you know, Another thing that we put together a couple of years ago was our handbook, and I've shared that a number of times on social media. But our handbook was something that, it was this kind of side project for me. Years ago, I Googled handbook. I downloaded it in Word. I like found whatever company name was in there, and I changed it to NS Builders, and I used that. And fast forward 2-3 years, I sent it to our lawyer, and she was like, "You can't use this. This is crazy. Like, there's stuff in here that just doesn't make sense." So we got rid of it, and we basically started from scratch and drafted one with all of our, all the boilerplate stuff, all the Massachusetts specific stuff. But then our vacation policies, our policies for vehicles, for social media, for cell phones, and just really took the time to put it together as a nice document. Actually, have it. Yeah, I put it together as a really a really nice document. And then I went to our partner Slash. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, you can see this. Where's the camera? And I went to Slash and I was like, hey, I want to create a booklet out of this, because originally the lawyer sent it to me as a Word document, and the booklet makes it, let me just flip through it here. So you see our brand statements in the beginning, our core values are all listed, so you're reminded, and then nice big table of contents, and then it just goes through all of the information, all the holidays that we get off. It's nicely done. And what I realized is, when I put it in a book like this, even me, like, I see this sitting on my desk, I pick it up, it feels nice. Like, I flip through it, and I'm more apt to read this because it's nice and it looks good and it's branded, and it's just a better booklet than a Word document that sits in Dropbox, though we have it in Dropbox as well. Um, so we put that together, sent it out to the team. We get everyone to sign it because we want everyone to understand what's in that handbook. And now just most recently, we had a holiday off that I forgot that we had off, but they didn't ask me. They were like, hey, they didn't say, hey, Nick, do we have this holiday off? They knew because it was in the handbook. It was in our payroll program. Everything is aligned, and everything is set to, what that expectation is. I actually have that handbook on my website if you want to download it at nickschiffer.com. We put together the Word document, and outlines how you can take that and input all your information into it. But I will say, you should still have your lawyer look at it, to make sure that it is applicable to your business and to your location. But it's a great baseline handbook. It's not too much and it's not too little. It gives you a good starting point. So, yeah, I wanted to hop on here and just talk a little bit about that. I've been thinking about it all night since I had that conversation yesterday on the podcast. And it's a hot topic, I think, in our industry, and it has been for a while, and it will continue to be. And I'm going to continue to navigate the challenges of it here, and hopefully share what I learn with you guys. So appreciate you guys listening. Hopefully we'll see you guys at the International Builder Show. Tyler and I will be there. I'm also connecting with Brad and Morgan. So the Contractor Coalition Summit that we host, we're actually doing a meetup in Vegas. If you want to join that, I think we might be sold out, but head over to my Instagram, nickschiffer.com. I'm sorry, at Nick Schiffer on Instagram. There's a link in my bio to sign up. And then we're hosting another summit series, which is limited to 30 people only. And that link is in my bio as well. And that's going to be in Minneapolis. So we do that twice a year. We've done, I think, 4 or 5 of them so far. And always sells out. It's a great time, 2.5 day, really immersive event.